In this episode of Cycling Tours, I will explore the cycling network in the southern sector of Sembawang. Hello, it's Transit Evolution here again, and today we'll have a look at the town with the oldest cycling path in Singapore, Sembawang. But before we look at that, I'll begin my journey through some rather narrow footpaths at the heart of the town, next to Sembawang MRT station, which, believe it or not, forms a part of the Canberra Park connector. Fortunately, this will not last for long, as I make my turn into Canberra Road. Being a moderately sized new town, the cycling paths of Sembawang shall be covered over 3 separate videos, featuring the northern, southern, and eastern sectors of this town. This video will mainly cover the cycling paths in the south, or the majority of Sembawang Neighbourhood 3. However, it will probably not provide a full picture of the cycling network in the vicinity by the time you watch this video. For one, there may be a new cycling path on the opposite side of this road to the left, to be completed in tandem with a polyclinic and sport facilities along the frontage of Bukit Canberra Integrated Hub under Phase 2, but it is not ready as of the time of this video's recording. For those which currently exist, they are mainly built to older typologies, under 2 phases. I am currently on the grey cycling paths built during the second phase, under contract RP228D, awarded in 2012, which mainly consists of paths in the southeastern corner of this neighbourhood and some others further north. Their width varies, which means that bidirectional cycling is not possible without deviating into the adjacent footpath in many cases. Also noteworthy is the number of conflicts you get with pedestrians each time the roadside commuter facilities meet perpendicularly with footpaths leading to public housing precincts. Pardon me for a moment though to point out that these blocks on my right, 300 Canberra Road to 318 Sembawang Vista, were tastefully designed to be inspired by colonial bungalows to the northeast, with partial brick cladding and elegant arches incorporated into the lower floors of these blocks. I'll talk more about the block designs in this town later, but at this point it is obvious that it takes less than 4 minutes to get to Sembawang Avenue from Sembawang MRT station. The alternative by bus is 980 at around 5 minutes, but that doesn't really bring you directly to the station. Earlier, I travelled along Canberra Road, and now I will look back towards Sembawang Town Centre, but this time via Sembawang Drive. I am now passing Sky Park residences, and with the cycling path further from the road, I am positioned uncomfortably close to the fence of the condominium, if I were to keep to the left side of the cycling path. Moreover, the fences obstruct my view of exiting vehicles from the private premises, creating a blind spot as it may be hard for exiting vehicles to see cyclists and vice versa. After crossing Sembawang Crescent, I now encounter the oldest cycling paths in Singapore that currently exist. These ones were town council initiatives from as early as 2008 and were built together with some near Admiralty MRT station. They are 1.5 meters to 2 meters wide, often impossible to use for 2 cyclists in opposite directions. The paths were built on public housing land and deviated a little into Sun Trellis precinct over here. Noteworthy is the sweeping curve that the housing blocks have here, overlooking this particular intersection, where the housing blocks are arranged in a manner to form a circular enclosure around the junction. But as for the paths, well, they aren't really any good. These paths are accompanied by dismount and push signs, as is typical with these early cycling paths, and along this walkway behind the bus stop next to Sun Plaza, they even installed bollards to prevent cyclists from riding through, perhaps due to the crowd of human traffic here, making the walkway a pain to use for wheelchair users. Now I'm returning to Sembawang MRT station, and as it turns out, it takes a longer 6 minutes to get here from the southern end of the estate using Sembawang Drive, which is not surprising given the amount of human traffic in the vicinity of the town centre that is along the way. I shall head south once again, but this time on a different route. Sembawang Vista features a newer cycling path. As with many of the paths here, what happens is that this surface I'm travelling on was once a footpath, but during the project, a grey surface was added to the footpath to make it a cycling path, and a new footpath was built next to the motor carriageway. Unfortunately, according to a forum letter, residents observed that this new footpath to the right would be too close to traffic for comfort for many pedestrians, and it is also more windy, so walking on it takes longer. Since many people would choose to walk on a path that is safer and shorter, it is natural behavior that many pedestrians wind up walking on the cycling path, increasing the risk of collisions between pedestrians and cyclists. Hence, while it's good to see a green verge providing a buffer between cyclists and pedestrians here, the user behavior doesn't really turn out as expected. This problem may be solved by swapping the position of the two paths. Along Sembawang Crescent, the grey cycling path was reconstructed together with newer adjacent developments in stages, sometime between 2017 and 2018. Things get a little unusual as you approach the Park Life condo, as the pavement widens and causes the cycling path to be not left or right of the footpath, but in the middle of it. So the pedestrian realm is on both the left and right sides of the cycling path here. This strange typology stays as so, even as I move further along to the newer public housing precincts of Sun Breeze and Sun Natura, both completed in the late 2010s. The bus stops fronting them are bustling with life, since both of them are precinct centres, with a small mix of shops and amenities. For comparison, the bulk of public housing in Sembawang New Town was completed between 1997 and 2004, starting off in the south of the town, before growing north and eastwards. So around the same time that Sengkang and Punggol were built, though Sembawang is a lot smaller and more intimate. Pardon this deviation here as I turn onto the Canberra Park connector briefly so that I can connect to yet another park connector on the other side of the Sun Natura precinct. A short brief look at the southern end of the Sembawang Park connector, built on the eastern side of Sungai Sembawang, which itself is east of Woodlands Avenue 10. You will see more of Sembawang Park connector in the video featuring the northern sector of Sembawang Cycling Town, where I travel as far north as Admiralty Road West. But I will find myself coming to an end rather quickly here, as the park connector merges with the road, next to the Arc Agambus Industrial Building. Still, it's worth noting that it continues on along Woodlands Avenue 12, but that's for another video featuring Woodlands Cycling Network on yet another day. For this final leg, I'll be travelling on this cycling path along Admiralty Drive, yet another Town Council era path from 2008. I think it is good to appreciate the rather interesting building forms that this vicinity has, when compared to the older slab and point public housing blocks that preceded it, and even the newer housing block designs that are built nowadays. There are plenty of curves incorporated into the design of these blocks, mainly featuring 4-room, 5-room, and executive flats. Think about what the flat layouts of these residences would be like though. Some could be pretty strange. Anyways, I'm now approaching the intersection of Admiralty Drive and Sembawang Drive. Notice that the crossing points at this intersection are rather far out, with the pedestrian crossing at the signalized intersection very narrow in width, leading to little waiting room on the pavement. This is typical of our housing estates back in the day, and in the case of this older part of Sembawang, the pedestrian crossings weren't widened to accommodate cyclists when the cycling paths were built. Built using older standards, you can also see seams within the pavement, which is where additional concrete is used to patch and widen things up to accommodate a still substandard cycling path. This is just how things were done back in the day. The problem with doing things in such a patchwork manner is that as time passes by, the soil shifts, and the new pavement may eventually be at a different elevation from the old one, which may result in water stagnation issues or tripping hazards for both pedestrians and cyclists. This is why nowadays, in newer cycling paths that are directly adjacent to footpaths, the entire pavement surface would have to be completely replaced, which contributes to the more expensive costs in the construction of newer paths. Along this final stretch, I will soon make my way along Sembawang Way so that I can make use of a mid-block bicycle crossing right next to Sembawang MRT station. Overall, I would say that the cycling provisions here really do vary in designs that are depending on the age of the path, which can make things confusing for the residents here. They are also mostly too narrow to support any substantial population of the town making short-distance commutes. Works will have to be taken to widen the paths here even further to make such a thing possible. As we approach the end of this episode of Cycling Tours, do leave your thoughts on the cycling network here. And if you are new, kindly subscribe and hit the notification bell. You can also support us using the Super Thanks function of YouTube. This is Transit Evolution, signing off.